Welcome to Socially Served. I'm your host, Frank SROKA, and I'd like to welcome you to our live broadcast with our guest here, Pat Saito, a councillor at Mississauga. And we're here live broadcasting at Erin Mills Town Centre from the Mindshare Workspace. This is a marvelous location. I'm so glad you're joining us. And we're going to be speaking about accessibility, master plans to do with Mississauga. And we'll be right back. So don't go anywhere after this message. Welcome back to Socially Served, and I'm here with our guest, Pat Saito, a councillor in Mississauga. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
It's my pleasure. I just kind of want to talk a little bit about this is such a great space, the Mindshare Workspace, and I'm looking at sort of the collaborativeness of bringing community and business together. And I just sort of want to touch a little bit about the master plan that's upcoming with the City of Mississauga. Maybe you can share that with us.
Okay. Well, I think the plan you're talking about primarily is our reimagining the mall.
Yeah.
Shopping center and retail stores, and bring business into it, but a collaborative type of business that offers opportunities for entrepreneurs and small business people, individual operators. I met a young gentleman the other day that was a design expert, and he was printing. Actually, I think he printed Susan's banner.
Great.
And those uses have now come into Erin Mills Town Centre, and it's very unique. But it shows the shoppers going by can look in, they can see the activity in here. And it provides a really wonderful service right here. So it is reimagining the mall. They're not just for retail and shopping anymore.
So is this sort of part of the whole flow, I guess, looking forward in the future of bringing sort of community business together, sharing workspaces, being collaborative about it? Is that sort of what we see, or what's upcoming?
I mean, the days when a lot of people are working online, they're working at home. They don't necessarily need a permanent office space. And sometimes someone starting out, for example, may not be able to afford to rent office space. And if they don't need it, why spend the money on it with all the utility costs and everything else?
Absolutely.
And equipment is expensive. So, something like this provides them with the opportunity to have the space, the equipment. And I think, too, the most important thing is meeting other people, because I'm sure that partnerships have been forged through people coming here.
Absolutely.
And, saying, hey, I do this, you do that, let's get together and make something great.
Great networking environment. Really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that's and so I'm looking at sort of the master plan a little bit, and I'm thinking also, which is very important for us, is accessibility.
Yep. And
so how does that come into play with sort of developing a master plan? Do you have like an advisory council with?
Yes. City of Mississauga, we started our advisory committee about, I'm dating myself, about 13 years ago now. And I was appointed by council with another member of council to sit on the committee. So I've been on it for the entire life of the Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Right.
And we bring together persons with disabilities, a wide range of disabilities. We also have stakeholder representatives. So from CNIB, from the Hearing Society, that type of thing, representing a wider range of disabilities. Over the years, we've expanded the committee to include senior representatives. So
excellent.
People who work with seniors, because while it may not be considered a disability, the same barriers that face people with maybe a physical disability sometimes and quite often face seniors as well.
Absolutely.
So, we needed the input. The other thing that we had with our committee, which I think is quite unique, is a very large employee task force. And it was interesting, when we first set up the committee, we had one representative from every division and department in the city. So we had this large number of people sitting around the room, wondering, what are we here for? What are we going to do? What are we going to have to change? And of course, the province was decreeing that over a period of time, barriers had to be removed.
Right.
We first went to council, and the first question out of the former mayor, as a matter of fact, was how much is it going to cost?
Right.
And is the province going to give us the money to make these changes? Because it was going to be expensive. So we challenged our staff to find ways, as we were doing retrofitting or even to look at their departments, look at their divisions, and find ways that we could incrementally remove barriers across the city. I have to say that our staff became so engaged that, from a group of people who were with great trepidation, like, oh, what are we going to have to do? And they didn't understand
Right.
about, people with disabilities.
Yeah.
What are we doing? We did sensitivity training. They bought into it 100 and I would say 150%.
Excellent.
They went beyond what we expected and came up with brilliant ideas. They said, we're going to implement this in our department, and they did it.
Great. That's such a good thing to hear. And it's interesting, I know we spoke a little bit, we had a conversation previously, and you mentioned sort of how, the accessibility committee was formed, and you mentioned this scenario, and it kind of made me more aware of what actually does happen, and it was in terms with the buses and calling
right.
out stops. And so maybe you could tell me a little bit about
Okay,
that, and tell our viewers about that.
I'm very proud of that. That we had some of our members on the committee who were legally blind, and of course and several of them used Mississauga Transit quite frequently. The problem was they could not see if they were arriving at their stop, so they asked if transit drivers would start calling out the next
Right.
stop, which is very logical. That was before we were able to automate, and before Toronto did their pilot with automated stop calling. So they went to the union, and the drivers were very like, oh, we don't want to call out the stops
what
because
do we do here?
we really don't want to do this.
Right.
We don't feel comfortable doing this.
Right.
And the union was, well, it's not in their job description.
Right.
So several of our members from the committee went in, they met with the union, and they said, we are your clients.
Right.
And we are the people who cannot see where the stop is. We don't know when to get off the bus. We need you to help us. They also went and they sat down with the drivers, and they did sensitivity training. They did educating. And the result was that the union said, yeah, we're right on board. We're going to have the drivers call out the stops. At council, we moved up the implementation by almost 2 years of
Excellent.
getting the automated system on our buses. And now all of our buses have it. But we also have, if you drive around Mississauga, you'll see on bus stops, and this was to help the drivers.
Right.
Every bus stop has a sign that says the next stop is, and it gives the name of the next stop.
Great.
So the bus driver, because they move all over the city, so
True.
they wouldn't necessarily know. So the bus driver, when they were doing it manually, would come up to the stop and say, next stop is whatever street. So the people on the bus would be able to judge when they had to get off the bus. Of course, now with the automated system, we don't need that. But that was a really good example of the members of the committee, the citizen members, taking action, saying this is what we need, and then working with the staff of the city, who were the bus drivers, and really, making them aware. And they didn't understand. People don't realize, not everyone realizes the barriers that some people face.
Right, and being proactive and initiating sort of a process in dealing with accessibility. There you go, there's a solution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be right back. We're just going to take a commercial break. So I'd like to thank you, everyone, for joining us, and don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Socially Served. Hi, welcome back to Socially Served. I'm your host, Frank SROKA, and we're broadcasting live from the Erin Mills Town Centre at Mindshare Workspace. And I'm here with Councillor Pat Saito, and welcome back.
Thank you.
And we were just chatting about accessibility and talking about barrier-free environments. And I just want to to congratulate the city of Mississauga really being proactive in terms of being more accessible, being barrier-free. And we at the Disability Channel really encourage that. As you know, we really want to be involved with the city of Mississauga. And I think just being here on the station and being here on the show today shows our viewers that we really want to be involved. So I really thank you for coming and to talk to us and share stories in terms of the Accessibility Committee. And I just want to talk a little bit about now, if someone's interested in becoming involved with the Accessibility Committee, how do they become involved with that organization?
Well, the committee is appointed for a term of council. So this is an election year. So after October of this year, the staff will, clerk staff, will be posting notices for committees. Any resident in the city of Mississauga can apply to be a citizen member on a committee. Accessibility Advisory has some very specific requirements that we have a certain number of people that have to have disabilities. We want to have a range of disabilities so that we have more representation. We have stakeholder representatives. And we also have opportunities for citizens who may have a family member with a disability, but they don't themselves. So they have some knowledge of whatever disability it might be. We do interviews. We ask people to submit resumes and why they want to be on the committee, why they feel they can contribute. And we select the number of people. Each committee has a different number of people that is required. Usually a bit of a range, so we have a little bit of leeway. If you know, we always find that we end up with more people that could serve on the Accessibility Advisory Committee than we have space for.
This is good.
So it's a good thing. We have a lot of interest. We have a lot of interest, and as a matter of fact, we have some of our committee members, including our chair, Carol Ann Chafee, and I have to give a plug to my good friend and former volunteer, Awesome Zaidi. They are on the committee as well, and it's you know, they work very hard and they bring a lot of knowledge, but a lot of insight, and that's, you know, those of us that maybe don't have barriers in front of us, we need that insight.
Well, we take it for granted so often, right?
We do.
And as you know, as the population ages, I mean, we're going to still need to be in a barrier-free type of environment regardless.
Oh yeah.
And when you're planning, these things are very important, right? In the city planning or planning a master plan, these concepts are really important.
Well, let me tell you about one thing we discussed yesterday.
Sure,
I really want to put a plug in for this because
Okay.
I'd love to get opinions on it.
Good.
We're doing a parking master plan for the city of Mississauga, and we had a very brief presentation yesterday and asking for input. So we started talking about the fact that when we build our community centers, in particular any city building, if there's a seniors group, you end up with a lot of people that have walkers, wheelchairs, people with disabilities. I have a new community center just up the road, and it has a therapy pool. So you have people who, whether it's for a permanent disability or temporary disability, I always joke, I said everyone up in Meadowvale is getting a new knee. You know, it seems to be the age group, but we don't, I wouldn't say we don't have enough accessible parking, handicap parking. We have enough based on our bylaws, but there's never enough based on the people that are coming to the center. So I was throwing out an idea of, you know, maybe having temporary handicap spaces to add to it on special events. And one of our staff had said, well, maybe we should look at VIP parking or preferred parking for people who might need it for that particular time.
Sense.
But maybe they don't have an accessible parking permit.
Right.
So a senior citizen who, you know, needs it. When I drive into the mall, do you know that if you're a young parent, male or female, mother or father with young children, you get preferred parking.
Right.
If you order, and I'm gonna blame Walmart here. if you order shopping, if you order items online, you get preferred parking. But if you're a senior citizen who maybe does not have a handicapped access permit, You may have to park way at the end of the
Doesn't make
aisle
sense.
and walk past this young person pushing a stroller
Right.
who gets the preferred parking, and that has really bothered me.
So this accessibility
does.
committee now this is one of the
We're
tasks
looking at
that we could
that.
look at, right?
Yes, yeah.
So now, how do we get in contact with yourself or with the advisory committee? Is there a website? Is there a phone number?
Yeah, the City of Mississauga website at mississauga.ca, and just then key in accessibility, and that will take you to everything about the Accessibility Advisory Committee, when the meetings are. We meet twice a month, and we just had one, so.
Okay.
But it will also, if anyone would like to contact me, it's pat.saito at mississauga.ca, and we would be more than happy to hear your ideas. You know, we're always looking for ideas of how we can remove barriers, whether it's on your street, in your neighborhood. We have a little bit less control in private retail space, like the mall. But I have to say that when we get ideas, we take them to the mall management or the business owner, the private enterprise, and we get pretty good results. People are really open to making their businesses more accessible, and it's, you know, builds business for
Well,
them.
it makes business sense.
Well,
right?
it does. It does.
Absolutely, accessibility. Well, thank you so much for joining us today at
You're
Socially
welcome.
Served. It's
You're
such
welcome.
a pleasure having you with us. And I'd like to remind our viewers that actually March 10th, we're going to be at the Hershey Center. Actually, Susan's going to be broadcasting her show live at the Hershey Center. So do join us for that day and tune in at the Disability Channel. And thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience. You've been great.
Hi, audience.
Love it, love it. And thank you for joining us on Socially Served, and we'll see you next time.